We're here at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis to do a filmmaker's dialogue with Béla Tarr and to talk about the evolution of his work and show clips from Family Nest in '79 to The Man from London, 2007. We'll look at the evolution of Béla's styles of filmmaking, the understated humor in his work, and the luscious black and white imagery of Hungary and the Hungarian people. I'm Howard Feinstein, film critic for American and British publications, programmer for the Sarajevo Film Festival, and I will be your guide through Béla's work. So let's begin our filmmaker's dialogue. I think it's really great that we started, this is called Prologue, and it's part of an omnibus film called Visions of Europe from 2004, where 25 European filmmakers made 5-minute maximum pieces on their idea of the future and being in the part of the European community, or their future in the European community. So this is essentially Béla's vision of, I guess, Hungary as part of the European community at some point. I just wanted to say one reason I'm really happy we started with this is, and this is my point of view, not necessarily Béla's, but I think it kind of shows a melding of what I consider two different styles. Not that there's not consistency, but when you look at his body of work, and we'll see that through clips tonight. But firstly, I mean, it obviously shows the economic conditions in Hungary and in an urban setting. And we'll see that in the early films when we show the first clip, Family Nest from 1979. But also it's all in one take without a cut, which is something that he developed more later in his films after Macbeth, and Macbeth being a transitional film. And we'll see a clip of that as well. And ultimately, he's sort of on the road to making a genre film. His most recent film, The Man from London, that Cheryl was speaking about, which premiered in Cannes and was just in Toronto, where I think he's fused this style from the second period with a genre, in this case the policier, because it's from a Simenon novel. I just kind of want to say in this, what I consider the first period, the film we'll see, Family Nest, is part of a proletarian trilogy, so-called proletarian trilogy of 3 films, and in an urban setting. Compared to the later films, the editing is somewhat conventional. A lot of handheld camera work, a lot of close-ups.
And long monologues. And long monologues,
of course. Yeah. And basically looking at families that whose personal lives are adversely affected by economic conditions, especially in this case housing shortages. And from the mid-'80s, post-Macbeth, which was 82, I believe, the films become a little bit more languorous, longer takes, fewer cuts, and mostly village settings among peasants and so forth. And we'll see clips of some of those films, Damnation, Sátántangó, Werckmeister, Harmonies. And I don't know, I think from the beginning, most of his films kind of depict a landscape of a country that's really been through a lot. It's really been beaten down by political factors, maybe climate factors, so forth. But somehow, and some people think Béla's films are bleak, and maybe they are, but I find them ultimately very hopeful, and I think that's really important. And I also find a healthy dose of humor in them, so I hope you do as well. Susan Sontag called Béla one of the filmmakers whose films are heroic violations of the norms. And I don't think Béla would say that about himself. He's not the type of person. But I think that's just how he views the world. So I don't know. If you don't mind, maybe we can just show the first clip and then we kind of start talking among ourselves, unless you'd like to say so.
I just wanted to tell you only one thing. I choose this short because it looks like something which is a kind of statement. And if you go through all of our work, because I'm not working alone, in this case you can see all of our movies is talking about the human dignity. And I think this is the point of view which is the main issue. If you're looking for a key for these movies, surely this is the key.
But I find it interesting that you're depicting human dignity among people who are otherwise marginalized, outsiders, maybe oftentimes down and out people.
They have human life.
Yeah.
What do you mean, outsiders or marginal?
I mean, that they would be considered.
That's somebody said, you know. You can say maybe the Beverly Hills also a marginal because it's not the society.
Okay, well, why don't we show a clip from Family Nest, which is Bella's first feature and the first of 3 in the so-called
It's definitely 30 years old movie in this year.
But I think it stands the test of time personally. But this is a clip on the DVD that's recently been released. There are subtitles for the last part of the clip, which is a TV newsreel, obviously a government, a Communist Party inspired piece of news that we end with. But I think from the context you'll get the gist of it. So let's just show a short clip from Family Nest.
Gyerekek, mi a vacsora?
Nem teszünk bele semmit.
Pörkölt van, krumpli van.
Az jó.
Mindig csak a
Hát mit adhatok más, megmondanám? Mit adjak?
Nem tudtál más főzni?
Mit főztem volna?
Egy kis levesfélét vagy valamit. Tudod, a folyadékot szeretem.
A drága menyed nekiállt palacsintát sütni.
Micsodát?
Hogy bírtam volna nekiállni még levest is sütni?
Palacsintát?
Igen.
Vendéget vársz, vagy kit vársz te?
Igen, apuka, egy munkatársam, de nem hagytak szóhoz jutni. Bemutatom apósom.
Hol vagyok? Hát, de vendégeskedsz az élakásomban.
Most
És
meg
mikor
akkor-
jöttél haza?
5 órakor.
Apu, ne bántsák mindig az
Hát
irányt.
miért ne bánts, most megint barátnőket hozol ide?
Neki is kell
Élakásomban?
főzni, neki is van egy
Barátnő?
kisgyereke,
Akkor te ezt
neki is
tudtad,
el
nem
kell
jöttél, ugye?
látni a
Hogy te
gyerek.
sütögetted ezt a palacsintát.
Igen.
Hogy a barátnődet itt
És én is szeretem, és a pénzem ellen azt csinálok, amit akarok. Jó, hogy nem
Ilyen
maguk
nincs.
fogják
Hogy a
megszabni.
pénzeddel azt csinál, semmibe se száll.
Nem
Semmibe
is,
se.
én külön kosztom vagyok.
De azért
Akkor
valami-
tessék külön
Albéletet
albért is
tessék
fizetni
el.
valamit.
Tessék,
Jó,
albéletet.
ha tudok, elmegyek, de most jelen pillanatban nem tudok elmenni.
Várom,
Azért
hogy
mondják.
azt
Hát csak nem
Én
dobjátok
is
ki, hogy
várom.
nem dobhatjátok
Nem
ki, mikor a
kidobálás.
fiatok
Miért nem veszed a
katona.
szüleitől? Azt ígértétek csak egy kis rövid időre.
Igen.
Még a fiam majd, ha leszerel, majd kíváncsiak,
Akkor nem csak engem dob ki, hanem a saját fiát is kidobja. Meg a unokáját is.
Akkor az is fog menni.
Könnyen
Unokám
beszélnek,
az
mert
maga.
van lakásuk.
Unokám,
Az
még az
könnyen
édesanyukám.
beszélnek.
Lesz a nagypapa, hozott neked egy kis diót, jó?
Én is kezdetben így kezdtem, én te is
Persze,
így
jó van, hagyjanak
ültem és
engem,
szenvedtem. Azt tudod.
Még ő játsza meg magát. Na?
Az.
Barátnőket fogadít, meg nem tudom kiket, nekem a vacsora meg lemarad.
Apu, hát neki is
szíves
kell
szál.
kaját főzni annak a gyereknek. Neki is kell. Ha ő a
Kicsinek
saját
adok, a
főzését
kicsinek adok
szereti,
én, a kicsinek adok
saját
unokámnak.
főzését szereti,
Saját
akkor mit
unokámnak
csináljunk?
adok.
És mivel közösen kell, hogy lakjunk, hát nyilván, hogy először az egyik főz, aztán a másik.
És
Hamarabb.
mindig közösen lakunk. Amikor pénzről van sok, sose közös. Mindig csak a koszt, az ennivaló, a rezsi, az mindig csak a ketten édesanyjátok.
Mégiscsak más lenne anyádnál. Csinálják a cirkuszt. Látod, ő még nem tudja, hogy miről van szó.
Ha én nem dolgozok, akkor azt tikázsakat egyből fiacskám naponta még paprikás.
Látod, hogy veszekednek ott kint, látod?
Hát igazából.
Barátnőknek, azoknak vissza a barátnőknek áll.
Azt tényleg.
3 forintos kolbászokat kell nekem elég. Az a téli szalámi legalább egy kis tartalmas, és jól meg tudom fogni a munkát.
Janika, leckét megcsináltad, fia?
Maszatom. Nehéz munkát végez.
Mit akar a lakással? Azért mondja, mert neki van. Tudja nagyon jó, hogy úgyse tudok hova menni.
Nem, azért ide figyelj, én nem tudom, hogy ők is úgy kezdték, hogy nem volt lakás, de ha nekem lesz lakás, én azért, ha 10 gyerekem lenne, és pici hely lenne, én akkor se csinálnám ezt. Azért ez nekem olyan rosszul esik gyerekek, és látom itt is, mikor
én
egy
csak a
veled
menye
veszekszik,
vagyok, nem?
akkor veled veszekszik, akkor én már ideges vagyok. Akkor már ideges vagyok, és nem mondhatom nekik azt a szemükbe, hogy nincs igazuk. Mert mégiscsak az ő lakásukban lakunk, rá vagyunk kényszerülve.
De örökkel van, mi nem mész el, minek vagy itt, a örökkel nyakamon élsz,
És
minek
nézd meg a
Az
gyerekkel
Onyx,
is olyan
az
durván
Onyx, nem
tudok
az
beszélni.
Onyx.
Ideges,
Pontosan az.
mire a
Este
gyerekhez.
lefekszek, reggel fölkelek kezdve, és olyan sokat zavarom őket.
És látod, mire-
El is megyek a büdös picsába, de a Laci az biztos, hogy fog cirkuszt
De
csinálni.
mire a gyerekhez érek a
Félek a
tanulással, már
fiamtól,
nincs
nem?
türelmem.
Cirkusz nem csinálhat. Erről is eltartott személy volt. Kiküldött neki állandó csomagokat. Hazajött a Zsoldal, mindig sírt, elitták ott lenn a barátokkal a
Arról
pénzt.
én nem tehetek,
Nem
én
tehetsz
elég
róla.
sokat.
Egy rendes férj is, hiába fiam. Az is megkapja majd a pofon, csak jöjjön hadd egyszer.
Csak azóta kötözködnek velem, mióta egyedül vagyok. Azóta kötözködnek.
Egy nagyon falatot adjam.
Akinek nincs férje az oldalán, abban könnyű. Nincs, aki megvédje. Nekem, ha lenne egy férjem, látogatóba jönnék csak ide, és én nem akarnám, ha még késő este itt maradnánk, én nem maradnák itt.
De ahogy nem mondtad, ezt már nem egyszer lányom.
Nem, csak lenne egy lakásom.
Ezt nekem.
Az ember nem
Két
akaszthat
napon
be
erre
egy
sétáltál, és küldtél be a kisfiarat. Janikám, menj föl, nagypapád, nézd meg, hallom, beteg, meg így, meg úgy.
Igen, mert hallottam is, hogy beteg, hát akkor most mit csinálja?
És te miért nem jöttél föl?
Csúszszál térden állva, az jobb lesz.
Azért, mert nem akartam azt, hogy ki legyek dobva.
A Magyar Népköztársaság kormánya és a Központi Bizottsága közötti megállapodást írta alá Havasi Ferenc, az MSZNP Központi Bizottságának tagja, miniszterelnök helyettes, és dr. Maróti László, a párt politikai bizottságának tagja, a KISZ-KV első titkára, dr. Simon Pál jelenlétében. A 19. kongresszusa a paksi atomerőművek kiszépítkezésén nyilvánította.
Well, maybe you could explain a little bit about that news clip especially.
No, it's, you know, why I feel a little bit bad, because you could see now a little fragment of the whole drama. And it's a bit disturbing me. But I have to say something about this movie. When I did it, I was 22. And that's time, and I liked very much the cinema. And that's time I went several times to cinema, and I watched always just piece of shit. Everything, it was full of lie. It was fake, bad actors, stupid stories, terrible colors. And it was, you know, here was the life, and the movies has no any connection for the real life. And, you know, I was 22, I had full of energy, and I decided, no, we don't knocking on the door, we eat. And we shot this movie, and we decided, okay, we will do it a movie which has to be real, which means we shot 60mm handheld camera, non-professional actors, real people. It was just 5 shooting days, no dialogues, nothing. It was really a no-budget film. Not low-budget film, it's no-budget film. But I liked it very much, because we could go closer, a lot of people, and we can show you how they live, their emotions, their reactions, and how is going the real life. I'm very proud about we have done it that time.
But there was a movement at the time, a fairly political movement in filmmaking that I've heard referred to various ways, the Budapest School.
It was a group of young people. We want to do movies, but we really hated, as I told you, what we saw it in the cinema. And we had two ways. One of these guys, my colleagues, started to think about how they can doing some fake documentaries or pseudo documentaries, which and mostly they want to do political movies. Of course, against the whole system, and you know. But the other side, it was a lot of guys who decided they want to found a new film language, and they did it some experimental movies, and that was, and we worked together in a studio Béla Tarr, and we had a small budget for the whole stuff, and we always fight it who take it the money, the experimental filmmakers or the documentaries. But and I was always in the middle, because I was interested about the real human emotions, the real human, you know, the meta communication and the whole stuff. It was very interesting for me, and of course I had a social sensibility. But the other hand, I was interested about the film language too. and that was the time. It was this film. It was made 1977. It was some few filmmakers who did it some good things this time.
I probably should have provided a little bit of context. I think you could pick up on it that the father-in-law is basically giving a hard time to the daughter-in-law, his son's wife, basically trying to throw her out of this small flat that they're sharing, too many people. There's a housing shortage going on. And to me it seems pretty obvious that the father, who's such an autocrat, and then you move to this, no.
Watch the movie again. No, it's not. You know, he's a proletariat father who likes the order, and he has a strong imagination about the life. And he has a vision how he has to go ahead. And that's all.
Well, to me that...
I never judging. I have no courage to say he's an autocrat.
Okay.
No, he is also an unlucky man.
I'm not saying he's not sympathetic, but he certainly wants to impose his view of the world on everybody else in the household. And why do you, in this sequence with this TV news clip showing the Communist Party...
It's something. When you switched on the TV, that time you can see always what they do.
Yeah, but you made a choice.
No, if you switch here at the TV, you can see what your boss, Mr. Bush, does.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
It's going. I just wanted to tell you one thing. It was a family, and it was really. This movie is a big love story. A woman and a man. They love each other and they cannot be happy. That's very simple. And how their life goes to the hell. And they are able, they have more capacity than possibility. That's the real tragedy. If you are able to do something, you want to do something and you have no chance to do. That's why I like to show them, and they are really close to me. And I have to tell you, the woman who is the main character, she was in the Sátántangó, she played in the Werckmeister too, and we are still in contact. And she is not actress, still not. So yes, she is a worker.
I think what we should do is move on to just a brief introduction, and then we'll show a clip of Macbeth from 1982, which was done for Hungarian television. And as you can see in this film, I mean, it's edited as such. Macbeth is 2 takes, and I believe a 1-hour film. The first one is 5 minutes, and the second is 55 minutes, obviously, shot on video, and quite different in style, and it sort of has a theatrical...
You will see not different.
Okay, so you'll see for yourself. Let's show the clip of Macbeth.
Piros már az én kezem is, de van szívem fehér szégyen. Kopognak a déli kapun. Menjünk szobánkba. Amit tettünk, egy kevés víz lemossa, és akkor könnyű lesz, hogy cserben hagyott téged az erő. Megint kopognak, védj háborúha. Hogyha hívnak, ne lássák, hogy még fent voltunk, és ne tépelünk, hogy számolj.
Hogy ezt tudom? Bár magamról ne tudnék! Kopog fel, Duncan! Ó, bár megtehetné!
Micsoda kopogás? Ha a pokol kapusa lennék, megősülhetnék a kulcsforgatásban. Beelzebub nevében ki az? Egy gazda lesz, aki felkötötte magát, meg gazdának ízégezik a aratás. Jókor jössz. Hoztál elég törők között, mert tisztán jól megizzasztanak a tettedél. Ki az egy másik ördög nevében? Biztosan egy csirkcsavar ügyvéd. aki mindkét serpenyőbe bármelyik ellen képes volt esküdni. Úristen, mennyit csalt, hazudott, mégse tudta magát becsűrni, csavarni a mennyországból. Na, bújj, becsűr, csavar. Ki az? Aztán egy angol szabómester érkezett, aki még a szűk francia nadrágból is tudott anyagot kilopni. Befelé szabolít, aztán jó tüzes lesz a vasalód. Nincs egy nyugodt perc. Ki vagy? Poholna, túlságosan hideg ez a hely. Nem is játszom tovább a sátánkapusát. Habár úgy véltem, jó lesz beereszteni minden mesterségből egy-néhányat, aki a rózásos fénye az öreg tűzgyönyöre felé andalog. Mindjárt jövök. Ne tessék megfelekedni a kapusról.
Oly későn mentél aludni, barátom, hogy most így későn ébredsz?
Második kagasszaig itt dogáltunk. Vinni, uram, 3 nagy dolog atya.
És legfőképp melyik 3 dolognak?
Isten úgyse, uram, az orrfestésnek, az alvásnak és a vizelésnek. A riggyókodást, uram, csábítja és kábítja. Felpiszkálja a vágyat, de cserbe hagy a végrehajtásnál. Ennél fogva kiadós a bivászotra, csak ugyan rá lehet mondani, hogy csűrcsavarosan és rókamon viselkedik a riggyósággal szembe. Gyártja és rontja, birizgálja és elsikasztja. Rábeszél, de elbátortalanít tőle. Talpra állítja, de kicsinálja, hogy nem bírjon állani. Következésképpen orránál fogva vezeti álmában, de mikor beugrat a lefekvésbe, ő maga megugrik.
Na, ma éjjel téged jól
A
beugratott.
szégyenletem is meg tudta tenni, uram. Na, de visszafizettem neki a szégyenemet. Bár emelgette néhányszor a lábszára, majd de mindig sikeresen lerókáztam magamról.
Jó reggelt, sző. Jó reggelt nektek is.
Nem tudom, a király felkelte. Még nem. Leszek bátor beszólni, ez a határozott parancs.
Ma megy a király. Úgy rendelkezett. Viharos volt az éj. Ahol aludtunk, kémények dőltek be. És mondják, a szélben jajszó csikorgott és halálos sikor. És rettentő jóslat üvöltött, hogy vad pusztulást és zavart kell ki a fájdalmas idő. A sötét madár éjhosszat szólt, és mondják, lázbetegen rengett a föld.
Nehéz éjszaka volt.
Megalkotta remek művét a rondás. Szentségtörő gyilkosság tört be az Úr fölkelt templomába, és kilopta belőle az életet. Életet? Őfelsége. Nézzetek meg! És ott csak hiszemetek egy új gorgó, ott. Nézzétek, én hadd hallgassak! Föl! Ébredj, kondulj, vészharang! Gyilkos! Árulás! Pakulj, szanad meg! Nézd magát a halál! Itt az utolsó ítélet képe! Ki a síratokból? Markul, ezt tornelem belül! Kísértetek, kísérjétek a borzalmat!
He's looking at my notes before I can talk.
No, it's just, I was just curious what you want to show.
Second guess. Okay, between 79, 78, when you actually shot Family Nest and Macbeth, something's changed in your approach. Okay,
First of all, if you see, you know, after when I finished the Family Nest, I won a Grand Prix in Mannheim in Germany, and afterwards I went to the film school because they said I cannot direct feature film if I have no diploma. I had to go to the film school and I went there, and fortunately I had a really good professor who said, go and shoot. Don't sit here. I cannot teach you for anything. And he was a really good man, and I could shoot 2 features during of the school. And he called me once in a third year or fourth year. He said, now it's time to do something here in the school. He said, if we see the program of the school, you have to do now a classical literature adaptation. Okay. And I had to read it that time for the other professor, the whole Shakespeare. And this evening, I was reading the Macbeth. And I called my professor and asked them, the Macbeth is good? He said, okay. That's the reason why we did it, this Macbeth. He was who provoked and pushed me to this. If you compare it, this movie with the others, you will see, again, long monologues, long, the psychological continuity, what I like very much, and what I want to show you always. It's here, still here, and that's which is also important, that you can see in all of my movies. That's terribly important to how we are working with the actors, because we never use them like actors. You know, first of all, I apply always just their personalities. And for me, it's much more important that someone who is not a good actor or not an actor, but his personality and the character is similar. In this case, I don't direct anything, because I'm just creating the situation, put it into the actors, and do it. Because, you know, this is the real directing, to put it everything in a good condition. In this case, they are able to being, and they are not playing. If you see this Macbeth, it was a very big scandal in Hungary when we did it, because everybody said this is not a real Shakespeare. We destroy, you know, this high quality Shakespeare playing. What we are doing is looks like the the housewife and his husband, and they just want some money. And yes, because that's the truth. That's Macbeth and Lady does.
Yeah, yeah.
What they do. They want the power and they want the money, and how it's going. But it's the same line.
No, there's a lot of consistency also, but for example, here you follow your characters with the camera without cutting away from them like you do it earlier.
You know, because we shot in the castle in Buda, and this was really beautiful because it was a 300-meter long labyrinth, and by the end it was a big courtyard. And when you will see at the end we have a combat, and we had horses, and we had a lot of strange things, but I enjoyed very much. I must say, it's 150 people worked in this project, and it was such a beautiful step. In every evening we went and we shot during of the night. It was 15 days, 10 days for the rehearsal, and afterwards we shot 5 days. And this, the other things, you know, if you shoot a 55 minutes long takes with the handheld camera, and you are going up and down in the stairs and everything, we could shoot once a day, and afterwards the first DOP dead, and the second came, and he shot the second one. And that was 2 per day. That's what we could do. And somebody did a mistake at the 35th minute. In this case, stop, back to 1. That was a horror.
Wow. I imagine for the actors as well.
Yeah, if somebody did, for example, this old guy who who is a real, he was a real alcoholic. Unfortunately, he died. And can you believe when he finally learned the text?
I think with the next film we're going to see, Damnation, which is from 1988, you'll hopefully...
1987.
You shot,
said,
but...
No, 1987.
87. So much for imdb.com. No.
imdb.com is a piece of shit. No. It's everything. Everything is wrong.
I know.
Everything is... I read, for example, The Man from London, one of the main characters is Volker Spengler.
He's not even in...
No. No. Once we talked about maybe Volker could come and do, but he became sick and he couldn't come and do. But why they published something which is totally not true? Don't listen for this IMDb.
Anyway, why don't we go right into a clip of Damnation from 1987? And this is actually the first scene of the film following the credits. And I think, and you know, Béla, I love arguing with Béla, but for me this kind of shows more and more emphasis on the act of seeing. And this is in the very first sequence of the film. But let's watch it and we can talk about it. By this time, you're working with the novelist Laszlo Krasznahorkai. And it seems maybe you're finding a visual and an oral correlative to his kind of text. How did you approach adapting?
First of all, after the Macbeth, we did a movie, which it was called Almanac of Fall. I have to tell you, this movie it was the most depressed movie that I have done in my life. I don't know why. This time I really didn't see any hope and any chance. And it was a really crazy movie. That was color movie. We played with the colors and the lights and everything. And afterwards, we had a really bad situation in Hungary because everybody said what we are doing is absolutely against the movie, against the society, against the whole system. But we didn't care about. But once, a friend of mine, who is a literature critic, he gave me a manuscript, which it was a manuscript of the Sátántangó. And I read the book, I was amazed, and I called the writer, Laszlo, and I told him I would like to meet with you. We met, and he has the same age. We are in the same generation. He's 1 year older than me. And we started to work about the script of the Sátántangó. We have been all of Hungarian feature film studios that everybody clicked out us. Definitely. That was a point when I didn't see any chance. After the Almanac of Fall, I am coming again, dirty, ugly people and ugly story. You know, it's everybody said, go to hell. And we had no any chance to work in the film industry, and I was totally over. And I met with a man who had a publicity studio, in a small cellar. They had a camera, and I told him, okay, I want to do something because I will die if I'm not working. And I asked Laszlo to come and do a script. I have an idea about a woman who is singing and a man who is bringing the gold. You know, it's a little bit film noir idea. And Laszlo came, and we did it together, the script of the Damnation. That was how we started to work together. But before we wrote it, the script of the Sátántangó, but we couldn't do. We had to wait nearly 10 years for the possibility to do. We could do after when the Berlin Wall fell down. Before we couldn't. And this movie is talking about the loneliness. But if you see all of my movies, dignity, psychological continuity, and the human loneliness, what you can see in this movie and all of other movies. All of our heroes are lonely, including Macbeth, too. And that's also terribly important. What can I say about the Damnation?
In this film and then the next ones, we'll see clips of, for example, Sátántangó and Werckmeister harmonies. It seems like there's a lot of like treachery and people doing very cruel things to other people. Is that from the source material, or is this more a development in how you see the world? Say, compared to Family Nest. I get the feeling, even though it's maybe an unpleasant living situation, this is a young director who thinks maybe we can change the world. And here it's maybe you still think you can change the world, but more by depicting how nasty things can be.
Okay. You know, if you are 22, you are really want to kill half of the world. And you are a film fighter, you know. And in this case, you believe it's okay, let's go ahead and against the society, we change the society and everything is fine. And afterwards, I could understand it's not only social problems. If you see the Almanac of Fall, it's talking about, yes, it's not only social problems, it's ontological. And if you go deeper and you go to this direction, in this case I have to recognize it's cosmical. The shit is cosmical. It's not just social, not ontological, it's really huge. And that's the reason why we spend, you know, the Damnation is a little bit, it was an experience to touching the time in a little bit different way than the others. That's all. The reason why everybody call it this is a revolutionary film, because we are using the time a little bit differently, but we had always the same way, but here it was a little bit more aggressive than the other movies.
I find in these Damnation, Sátántangó, Werckmeister, Harmony is almost and excuse me for simplifying it, but almost a yin-yang of these very kind of quiet scenes, very long takes, traveling shots, and then incredibly boisterous scenes of people in pubs, you know, getting drunk, dancing, music. It's almost jarring, the sudden shift, and then back. But anyway, the clip we'll see now from Sátántangó, which is 7 or 7.5 hours long.
7 hours and 15 minutes, with 2 intermission.
Right, which you'll get to see during this retrospective, is one of the pub scenes, and let's see that now from Sátántangó.
Lesz itt még rend, barátocskám, lesz itt még rend ebben az országban, lesz itt még rend, lesz itt még rend!
You know, you do something extraordinary in this film. This sequence is repeated later in the film. It's not the only incident, but it's repeated with the camera outside the window. So it's something that's hardly a convention in film structure. We see it more in literature. Maybe 4 chapters on, you go back to an earlier chapter and repeat it. And here you're doing it in this film, and it's extraordinary.
First of all, this is an adaptation. Of course, it's not. But we use the novel, and the novel has 12 chapters. We keep it, the dramaturgy of the novel. And, you know, that was very interesting, because when we read the book, I loved them very much, and we wrote it a script, which it was in the garbage, it landed in the garbage. And finally when we really could start the movie, I recognized it's impossible to do an adaptation. Because László Krasznahorkai wrote the book about the reality of the Hungarian lowland. If I use the book, in this case I'm lost. I understand I have to go to the Hungarian lowland, I have to discover the same reality what he had, and I have to make my transformation, use the book, but about the reality. And all of my movies, if you watch, it's always somewhere between the reality and the fiction, or I like to use a lot of real moments, and I like to involve a lot of improvisation, one hand, and the other hand, I like very much when everything is very well composed and perfect. That's how is, you know, Jean-Luc Godard said that once, the beauty and the truth has 2 polar, the documents and the fiction or imagination. And that's surely true. If you have just imagination and you have any sensibility for the reality, in this case you are fake. You can do it art. It's really artificial. For me, the biggest danger if somebody telling me you are artist. No. I just try to understand something about the reality, real people, real human feelings and real emotions and real interests. Of course, the form what we are using, it's a kind of art. But one more thing, for example, you could see the woman from the family nest. She was behind the first couple. She was dancing there. And you can see the guy who played the Macbeth in the Macbeth, and you could see the girl who is looking inside, and she is the main character now in The Man from London. I like to work with the same people. It's a kind of family. And that's what I really like.
In this film, as well as in Werckmeister Harmonies, the villagers are sort of attracted to a man who's almost like a false messiah, or they kind of grab on, and he...
I don't understand.
He sort of offers them some hope, and they follow him. And we see in Werckmeister people kind of attracted to this kind of figure also. And I don't know, is there something about fascism you're trying to say, or maybe in the novel, or people's attraction to it, or I'm just posing the question.
No, what we are trying to do, it's just, as I told you, we just try to understand it. What is around us? And I just wanted to show you from my position. Of course, this is mine. This is just my point of view. Maybe I'm absolutely wrong. But, this is a moral question for me. I have to tell you what I see, how I see. I have to show you. And you can judge it. If you don't like, you don't agree, you can go out. It's really... But, if I use for these films public money, I use the people's money, the tax money. In this case, I have to be perfect. I have to tell them what I think. This is a moral question.
We're far from the urban settings of your first features here. I mean, in these later films, they're villages, small towns. Is that because of some of the source material, or why did you move away to these settings?
Something about the locations. The location, is also main character. The location has a face. The location it shows us. It's terribly important. Absolutely, like the actors. I spend always a lot of time to find the right location, but it wasn't a decision. I don't shoot anymore in the city, or I don't shoot anymore in the lowland. It's always depending what we want to do. But the main issue is, in the family nest, which it's told about the claustrophobia, and wants to show you how impossible to live together, how they want to kill each other, and what is happening between the people. In this case, we used just close-ups, and we went very close to the faces, and we pushed. And when we talk about the landscape, and we want to show you the perspective of the hopeless on the Hungarian lowland, in this case we have to use some beautiful white pictures. And it's a real desert, but you can see in the Sátántangó. But it's always talking the same thing. The relation which is between the human and the nature, the relation between the nature and the time. In the Damnation, the rain is always falling, for example, and the Sátántangó too, and the mud. That's something which is a part of this world.
You mentioned earlier about the ontological aspect of your film. I think in the next clip we'll see that's going to be very clear. A sequence from Werckmeister, Harmonies, where sort of a mob of men are entering a hospital. It's about an 8-minute
He shows
sequence.
you now one of the most powerful scenes, and afterwards you don't come and watch.
The rest of it matches in quality as well. Let's see, Werckmeister, Harmony. and they have this metaphysical moment, kind of an epiphany, and changes everything. It's I don't know, usually I cry when I see this. I told you that before. Can you just tell me something about your conception of it?
No, I would like to use this word as metaphysical. Can I say you something? They have to turn back because behind him there is a wall. It's a fact. That's again what I want to tell to you. Something which is looks metaphysical, but if you are a director, you have to create always a good physical situation when you will understand. You know, if there is no wall and they are turning back, maybe it's a little bit too sentimental. Fortunately, we had a wall and they had to turn back.
Let me play devil's advocate. Why do you suddenly have this music coming up at that moment as well? Is that because they come up against a wall, or is there a change of, or is there a change in consciousness there?
No, you know, we just really wanted to show you one thing. You are able to destroy everything, but if you meet with somebody who is already destroyed, who is definitely on the edge between the life and the death, these people has to stop. And everybody who has human being, who has something what we can call it humanity, has to stop. And this is also my illusion. I believe still the humanity, and I believe still everybody has this humanity because it's in the blood. I know this is an illusion, but I want to believe.
I think it's clear from your movies. We just want to show a couple of stills. We don't have a clip from his newest film, The Man from London. It's a genre film. It's in some ways, but to me, it's perfect for Béla's style, and I think you'll even see that from the still photos. It's from a Simenon novel, and we're no longer in Hungary, which is a landlocked country. We're not in the plains of Hungary. The film's shot in Corsica and right on the coast, which plays the water and the land. It plays an important part in the film. So maybe we could first just see a couple of the stills from the film to get an idea of the atmosphere. Why Simenon? What attracted you to this?
The reason is that the story is a little bit long and not too interesting. One thing is sure. When I read this novel, it was, I think, 20 years ago. And I was remember only for one thing, for the whole atmosphere. A man who is working always night in a train station in the harbor, and he's sitting in a switching tower, and his work is he's switching the tracks, and the ship is arriving, and the people change, they move to the train, and the train is leaving somewhere to the country. And he is able to see everything, and the whole city is sleeping, he is alone in a cage. And that's what I like it very much. And that was the point when, again, the loneliness, you know, and something which is my mania, afterwards, when I started to work together with Laszlo, I understood immediately the whole stuff and the movie what we did. You know, this is an apropos Simenon. This is our movie, of course, but I have to tell you, the son of Georges Simenon saw it, the movie, and he said, this is the first perfect Simenon adaptation, and we changed a lot of things. We cut it out, half of the story, you know, and he likes very much. But it's really not too important. The most important things, we could do a movie about a man who is upper 50. He has a very monotone daily life. He has a very, very short road from the tower to the pub, from the pub to the flat, go to sleep, eat, go back to work. That's his life. And he has a family, and he has no chance to change anything in his life. And once he got a little chance, he got the temptation, and the movie is talking about how he lose his revolt. A little bit criminal story, but we didn't listen for the criminal line. And the kind of film noir, like the Damnation, I don't know, that's the reason why I chose this apropos.
I believe that's the last film in the retrospective, and certainly well worth seeing, as are all of them. I'd like to, we started off showing prologue, which was Béla's response to future of Europe, especially in his country, Hungary. I'd just like to end this with a quote I like from an interview he gave a couple of years ago when the journalist asked him, are things improving in Hungary? And Béla answered, we Hungarians were always too lazy for fascism, too lazy for communism. We are eating too much, drinking too much, making love too much.
That's true.
Thank you, Béla.
I said.